Hey there. It's Thursday. We made it all the way to Thursday, which means not far to go for the weekend. All right, we've got a lot to do today. We're going to start off with a guest we've had on just a couple of times, once or twice, I forget. Isaac Willour is here. He's one of the young guys who we have on from Young Voices, who is a super early, quick starter on his career, doing journalism and stuff. Isaac, welcome back to WTIC.
Hey, Todd. Thanks for having me back.
So we're going to talk about Laken Riley. What's your take on this story? What do you find compelling about it?
Yeah, so this is an interesting moment, Todd. Right now, a lot of people are looking at the Laken Riley situation, this horrific murder, and they have decided, for whatever reason, that this is the moment to tone police the way that Americans talk about illegal immigrants, which is just bizarrely tone deaf, but also completely unsurprising in the way that many of our cultural elites talk. So,
did you say they're taking the opportunity to tone police it?
Yeah, tone police, because what they'll say is that when we react in shock and horror to Laken Riley's murder, what we're really doing is scapegoating illegal immigrants, which is not the point at all and completely misses why Americans are actually frustrated about this situation.
Now, who's saying this?
Yeah, so a perfect example of this is shortly after this happened, David Boaz, who's a senior fellow at the Cato Institute and a person with whom I agree on other things, just not this, he tweets out on the day that Riley was tragically killed, 70 people were killed by American citizens, and he goes on to say, don't scapegoat immigrants. I don't think that's what people are doing when they're expressing anger and frustration over instances like the murder of Laken Riley. I truly don't think that.
You think that they are responding to a loaded story that's not loaded with race, but is loaded with a deliberate policy on the part of the left to ignore the border and let people just stroll in.
Absolutely, and it's interesting because I'm 22, and so this is not immigration is not on the top of the list of things that voters my age care about. It's like less than a third think that should be a top priority right now, according to current Pew data. But broadly, across the spectrum, Americans, especially older ones, this is an issue that is giving people real pause for concern, right? I do not think, and I've heard people make the case about this, including the Biden campaign itself and Rep. Bob Garcia from California a couple of days ago, that this is somehow related to race. It's not, seriously. To paint the response to Laken Riley's murder as an issue of deep racism on the part of people who are upset about her murder is deeply disingenuous and intellectually dishonest. There's no evidence to suggest that this is the case.
But don't they do it regardless of evidence? Isn't that a way to quash a story that is dangerous for the left? They throw the race bomb, and they hope that provides enough of a moat around them that they're protected.
Certainly, and interestingly, perhaps amusingly, it changes depending on the situation. You remember back during the days of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery, if you didn't freak out about this, if you didn't express appropriate social outrage, that was a sign of your racism.
So they want to pull it into that zone and make it a danger zone for the right. Right,
and it's interesting because the response can never be, we can never just be horrified at death of innocent people who didn't have it coming. We can never just be that's not enough in our current political climate. We must chart our aggression and our fear and our shock and horror onto a politically correct chart, which is simply not a morally serious way to approach politics.
Sure, but politics isn't morally serious, and certainly not the way the political parties practice it. And they're always doing tugs of war over stories and trying to pull the story over a different zone of energy. And if you can turn something that's bad for you and you're a Democrat, you want to turn everything into race because you win on race. That's your big issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is. I mean, you're right in that politics is not morally serious. But Americans should be, and including Americans who work in the media. Like, I'm sorry, if you're the kind of person who decides to spin this into an issue of race, that is truly, 2 people showed up on the running trail on the University of Georgia campus. Only one person had any choice in what happened. Laken Riley had no options. This is not about race at all. This is a horrific murder, and it speaks to the fact that the current wave of illegal immigration has made Americans feel, and in Laken Riley's case, tragically, be unsafe. And so the anger is not unjustified. It is not the part of some racist rage fueled by white nationalism or Donald Trump or anything else. It is the fact that when illegal immigrants kill people, Americans feel less safe. This matters, especially as we're staring down an election in November.
We're talking to Isaac Willour from Young Voices. Where can people read your writing? You write stories on this stuff?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm on Twitter at Isaac Willour. I'm pretty easy to find, and you can Google me on the internet as well. Young Voices is great about that. So
back to the race issue. Isn't it fair to say this is a race issue, but it's a race issue in the other direction, that the Democrats use the race issue as a way, as we've alluded to divide up all issues and to make themselves a glorified protector of the underclass based on race. And they really are dealing in racism themselves because they're trying to pack the country, the urban areas in particular, with people who come from south of the border countries. So really, if there's an argument you can make against them, what's your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Laken Riley's murder specifically, I don't know if race was an aggravating factor in that. I'm choosing, until I see pretty serious evidence of that, I'm choosing not to believe that. But in terms of the way the situation has been racialized by political actors, absolutely. There's no excuse for this. She was 22 years old. She was innocent. And her death has now become a political pawn for people who would rather smear ordinary Americans as racist than admit that illegal immigration makes them feel unsafe, which just indicates how absolutely tone deaf the far political left has become to the interest of many ordinary Americans, including ones who live in border states or feel threatened by the issue of specifically illegal immigration more broadly.
Hang on, Isaac. I'm confused. I'm not sure I understand your response. To me, the Democrats are the party of race, and they use race on a regular basis to carve the country up into voting blocks who will support them. So they provide services to urban areas, for example, that are unconstitutional, I would argue, but they've normalized that, and they treat urban areas as islands that get specialized policy. And part of that policy is to pack those areas with underclass that keep them permanently poor and make them ruin the schools and make it hard to educate kids in those areas, and then funnel money into those areas to win votes. So the reason you have the accused killer in the country in this case is because of race-based policy on the part of Democrats.
Maybe, but more directly, it is the part of poor immigration choices on the part of Democrats, and perhaps a poor concept of America as a nation with borders that need defending and sovereignty that is worth defending, that kind of thing. That, to me, is the direct cause of this, is a unnecessarily soft-handed approach on illegal immigration that has led to horrific tragedies like this and many others across the country in the past few months.
Isaac, we've got to take a quick break. Hang on a second. I've got another question for you. When we continue, we're talking to Isaac Willour from Young Voices. Stay with us on WTIC. Todd with you, WTIC. We're talking with Isaac Willour. Follow him on Twitter and read up on his writing. We're talking about the Laken Riley story, the college student murdered by an illegal immigrant in Georgia. Is there anything else about this story that jumps out at you in this aspect of it, Isaac, having to do with the racialization of it? You object to it being racialized because it's a pure immigration policy story. Is that how you would frame it?
That's approximately how. And the one other thing I would like to leave your listeners with is think about the way whenever there's a mass shooting in America, can you imagine if this rhetorical scenario happened in a mass shooting? Let's say, God forbid, there's a mass shooting at a school, and the response then is, well, we can't be mad about it. We can't demand action because that would be scapegoating mass shooters. You would say rightly, or everyday Americans would say rightly, that is crazy. That is so far beyond the pay. Not only is it tone deaf, but it's actively using political buzzwords to distract from solutions that could save lives. Mm-hmm. I would ask you, why is this any different? shame on the Biden campaign for this. It's pathetic.
So you're 22 years old. It gives you a different perspective from those of us in talk radio who are focused on politics all the time. When you see stories like this, and when you see how crazy the political rhetoric can be, how do you maintain some feeling of connection? Like, why do you want to be focused on thinking about politics and talking about it and writing about it when it's so nuts?
Yeah, well, I mean, one, I'm a Christian, so I feel a moral duty to try and see the world rightly and see the world correctly through certain moral principles. But two, I see a lot of people in politics, a lot of political actors, including in the case of Laken Riley, very prominent actors in major presidential campaigns who are absolutely filling Americans' minds and heads and hearts with garbage. And if we don't stand up against that, they're going to continue to do it unchecked. And if we leave, we are ceding that ground to the kind of people who would racialize America, racialize the murder of innocent young women on our streets, and truly drag America back into wrong-thinking, tribalism, and all the kinds of things against which we have fought so hard over the past 200 years. If we don't stand up against that, who's going to stand up? And if not now, when? That's how I look at it.
And what stands out to you most, irks you the most on a day-in, day-out basis? Is there one particular demonstration of this that you can point to?
I mean, we're living in a world where someone just set themselves on fire for Palestine. I mean, a conflict that does not affect them in truly any way and will probably not convince any lawmakers for anything. Maybe just the performative activism all around. I see it on the left, and I definitely see it on the right. Performative activism, less of that. Treating Twitter wars as if they are actual wars, or even worse, actually effective. We could all stop doing that. Spend a little bit less time online. Spend a little more time investing in real people, touching some grass. All of those things. We need to do more of that. We need to do less of tone policing. Exactly how we respond when 22-year-old innocent Americans are brutally murdered.
And tell people how to find you on Twitter again.
Absolutely. I'm on Twitter, Isaac Willour. You can look me up on the internet. I'm pretty easy to find. Young Voices as well. You can find me there.
Isaac, thanks so much for taking the time to join us.
Todd, thanks so much for having me on, man. Take care.
All right. We'll talk to you again soon. Isaac Willour from Young Voices. Willour, Willour. I like hearing a young person talk like that. I like that there's a young person who's excited about politics, because it is easy to view old people and politics being an old person's business, and to see yourself at age 22 as having no connection to it. But of course, the issues that we discuss are perhaps more vital to 22-year-olds, even though they don't see it that way, than anything else. So Isaac looks at something like the Laken Riley murder story out of Georgia and is appalled because he hears a conversation. He looks at the Democrats and he sees them trying to tilt the story away from that which it is, which is an immigration story. And that brings the energy of the conversation about immigration and thus the election issues and the forthcoming election into the forefront, which, of course, is why Democrats are defensive about it and why Republicans want to push it.